What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today, we're talking our top rookie running backs for this 2020 fantasy football season. And with the draft having wrapped up, there's a lot of different opinions out there on the type of production you might see from this group of guys. Well, we're here to tell you what your realistic expectations should be surrounding this group of guys. And that's based on our own internal projections, statistics, rankings, etc. So make sure to check it out. And before we get into it, for all of you guys looking to start prepping for this upcoming fantasy season, check out the 2020 ADP Fantasy Football Draft Guide. It'll be available at the end of the month. You can go ahead and pre-order it now at a discounted price. It's got everything you could possibly want. Top overall player rankings in numerous formats, individual player breakdowns at every position, along with player analysis and more fantasy advice. All the details in the description. And if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe. But for now, let's get right into it. So before we get into this deep dive on our rookie running back rankings, I wanted to quickly highlight a couple of points that I think will be very key to remember. Now, when it comes to these rookie running backs, there's about 8 of them or so that are really worth keeping an eye out for. Afterwards, it gets to a point of you're grasping at straws, really. On top of that, unfortunately for pretty much every one of these running backs, they all find themselves on some type of running back by committee situation on their new respective teams. And the reason I point that out is because there's really no Josh Jacobs of last year. There's no Saquon Barkley-esque guy from the year before. Now, obviously, there's guys that are above of the pack with higher expectations, but still, none of them fall into that category from years past when looking at previous rookie running backs that were very successful. And again, that'll play into the type of projections you guys should have. So kind of temper those, because I think that a high percentage of people are going to be really disappointed by these rookies if they draft them to be their primary ball carriers. And another thing that they have working against them is that with the situation being what it is in the sports world right now, and with workouts being restricted and with guys not being able to participate with their teams and with their head coaches, these rookies, not only the rookie running backs, but pretty much every single skill position player, rookie-wise, is going to be at a disadvantage compared to the veterans that were already there. So I do think that we could see a bit of a slow start from some of these rookie running backs compared to years before. And the last thing that I want to point out is tier-wise, right now, all of these guys, unless, there's an injury leading up to the start of the season, I have them as running back twos, mid to low end guys in that category. And again, I just point that out so you guys can keep that in mind and to some extent temper your expectations and rank these dudes appropriately. Kicking off our list, we start with pretty much everyone's consensus number one rookie running back, and that is none other than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. But let's go ahead and discuss why that is the overwhelming case. Well, first and foremost, he was the only running back selected in the first round of this year's draft, which has to tell you that's some type of vote of confidence from the coaching staff towards him. And speaking of that staff, well, it's none other than the Kansas City Chiefs, who are coming off a Super Bowl victory. They've got the best quarterback in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. They've got Andy Reid and an offense that can pretty much score 40-plus points on any defense in the blink of an eye. So all these things are obviously very beneficial for Edwards-Helaire. And I would say more so than any other rookie running back that was drafted, he is in the best situation in terms of ceiling-wise when it comes to fantasy production, opportunities, etc. So all these are great reasons to be high on Edwards-Helaire. Also on top of that is the fact that he is a very dual threat type of running back. So he's a good rusher, he's a good pass catcher, so that should increase the amount of opportunities he gets on a game-to-game basis. But let's look at one of the major problems, and that is the presence of Damian Williams. Because we mentioned it before, every single one of these rookies that was drafted is going to have to compete and maybe even be in a season-long running back by committee situation with the former veteran. And Edwards-Helaire is no different, because last year, Damian Williams was getting drafted around the second round in fantasy drafts, which would go ahead and imply that he is in that running back one category. However, we all remember the disappointment that was a result, because he ended up getting nicked up. He missed some time. He wasn't 100%. Then he lost some carries to LaShawn McCoy, guys like Darrell Williams, etc. But then fast forward to the NFL playoffs, and he was absolutely dominant. So that begs the question, is there going to be some type of recency bias when it comes to these coaches and how they decide to conduct these splits in terms of the workloads for Williams and for Helaire? Because is it going to be something in the realm of 70-30, 60-40, 50-50? And are they just going to ride the hot hand? Who's going to be the goal line running back? We still don't have the answer to really any of these questions, and that's the case for all these rookie running backs. And again, why I highlighted the fact that we're not going to really have training camps or maybe even preseason to sort out these questions, that could really hurt all of these rookie running backs. But the fact remains that compared to a lot of these other rookies, Edwards still finds himself in the best situation. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to see him outperforming Damian Williams. But again, I think it'll probably be more towards the middle of the season, not right away. As we stand right now, I as well have Edwards-Helaire at my highest rookie running back. I think he's the closest that you could get to a high-end RB2, and I'd put my money on him if there was any one of these rookies to go into that rookie RB1 type of status. Right now, I have him as my 20th overall running back this year. Now, again, that's subject to change based on injuries, etc., as we get closer to the season. And obviously, that's the case for everyone. But I'm also in the majority when it comes to my belief that Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be the first rookie running back off of your draft board. Coming in at number 2, I have got DeAndre Swift, who was drafted by the Lions in the early parts of the second round, and a lot of people believed he should have been the first running back off the board, calling him the most complete running back prospect. Now, me personally, I'm Team Jonathan Taylor, but we'll touch more on that in a bit. For now, looking at Swift, let's address one thing quickly before deep diving him, and that is that immediately once we went from Clyde Edwards-Helaire to DeAndre Swift, in this case, we have a change in our tier rankings of running backs, because Helaire was a tier 4 guy who I saw as a mid-level RB2, potentially high-end RB2, while looking at DeAndre Swift, I see him as a low-end RB2, mid-level RB2, and honestly, maybe even that is a stretch. But let's go ahead and look at why I think that his ceiling out of the next couple of guys that we'll mention is the highest, but at the same time, his floor might also be the lowest. So to some extent, he is the riskiest name out of these next couple of guys, because this Detroit offense in nature is pass heavy. With Matthew Stafford under center, he is a gunslinger. But on the flip side, when he's not under center, and we've seen that often because he also has an injury history, for God's sakes, he's coming off a broken back, this entire Detroit offense becomes stagnant, and that will hurt whoever is running the football or whoever's catching the football as well. On top of that, we have got the Patricia factor, because if he's anything like Bill Belichick, which we have seen that he is, well, he's got different running backs for different situations. Who's going to be the Sony Michel? Who's going to be the James White? Who's going to be the Rex Burkhead? We don't have a concrete answer to that. But the one reason why I think that DeAndre Swift can be successful is because when it comes to the veteran running back that he has to beat out, it's Kerryon Johnson. And I feel confident that he can. And that's not a shot at Kerryon Johnson in any way. It's more so a factor of the durability issues that Johnson has had. Because only a few years back, the Lions thought they had finally done it. They had found their running back of the future. They had broken the Reggie Bush curse of no 100-yard rusher for years. Kerryon Johnson was doing well, and then he started getting nicked up. He started missing time. He does it again his next year, and all of a sudden, you've got durability questions, and you've got the Lions, who have a lot of other needs defensively, using an early day 2 pick on a rusher. So that tells you that they're high on DeAndre Swift, and I think right from the start, we could see Swift have some higher opportunities than we might expect. But then the risk portion of this becomes, well, what if Kerryon Johnson stays healthy? Because if he does, I could absolutely see him outperforming DeAndre Swift in terms of statistics. And right now, a lot of people have Swift over Kerryon Johnson. So again, I caution you, be careful when it comes to that, because after Clyde Edwards-Helaire, you're looking at the potential of these guys, and it's going to be all over the map. So be cautious. DeAndre Swift is definitely one of these guys. He might be the poster child of boom or bust rookie running back. You know, I like the opportunity. It's there, but it's all dependent on Kerryon Johnson getting hurt. Because if they're both healthy at the same time, Kerryon Johnson is a skilled running back. And I think they kind of might cannibalize each other's production. And you might see them both finish lower than a lot of people are projecting. Right now, rankings-wise, I have got DeAndre Swift averaged out between standard and PPR to right around the 24-25 mark of running backs. So again, low-end RB2 is what that translates in my eyes too. At number 3, we've got Jonathan Taylor, who was drafted in the early second round by the Colts. And this is a guy that I'm very conflicted by, because going into the draft, he was my favorite running back. I think he is a do-it-all kind of guy. But at the same time, before the draft, I had Marlon Mack as a guy that I thought could be a sneaky good fantasy option, coming off a great season, being in Indianapolis behind that offensive line. I loved all those factors. But then bring in Jonathan Taylor, and all of a sudden a lot of question marks. So let's go ahead and address them and see why I still like Jonathan Taylor, but at the same time why there are reasons to be concerned. First and foremost, there might not be a better offensive line in the NFL than that of the Indianapolis Colts. So you have to absolutely love that for the sake of Jonathan Taylor. But then let's look at the downsides, because I think the list of cons is a little bit longer here. First and foremost, you've got Phillip Rivers as the new quarterback. Now, that will improve the offensive output, no doubt, compared to when Jacoby Brissett was under center. But I also think that might limit some of the running back opportunities and rush attempts they had, because last year it was kind of, let's have Brissett be that game manager and have the running attack lead the way. With Phillip Rivers, who, again, last year threw for more than 4,000 yards, he's a gunslinger. He's not afraid to spread out the football. There might be a little bit of a philosophy change offensively for the Indianapolis Colts. At the same time, pass catching wise, Jonathan Taylor and Marlon Mack might be behind Nyheim Hines, who I think is kind of very similar to an Austin Eckler, and we all know how much Phillip Rivers loved getting the ball to Austin Eckler while he was with the Chargers. But the last thing is Marlon Mack. I don't think he's going to be a guy that's going to be easy to beat out. Now, obviously, he does have a bit of a injury issue as well, but it's not as prolonged as some of these other guys like a Kerryon Johnson. He'll miss a week here, a week there, but usually he'll play the majority of the season. I think he's a talented running back. Obviously, he lacks pass catching ability, so Jonathan Taylor should have a leg up on that. But again, Nyheim Hines beats both of them in those categories. It's really going to depend on the type of packages that the Indianapolis Colts put out there. Ranking-wise, I've still got Jonathan Taylor barely behind DeAndre Swift, but again, that's more so because of the potential I see in Swift compared to Taylor. I think Taylor has got some more obstacles in terms of the running backs he has to beat out, But at the same time, if you're looking for a safer rookie running back, I would point you in the way of Jonathan Taylor, because I think his floor is higher with that offensive line. They will open up holes more so than that of pretty much any other team. So I like Jonathan Taylor from a safe perspective. I've got him overall right around the 25 mark as far as overall running backs, still in that tier 5 category like DeAndre Swift. So low end RB2, mid level RB2 is what I'm predicting you'll see from Jonathan Taylor this year. At number 4, we have got Keyshawn Vaughn. And this pick is all about shooting for the stars, because once you've landed on that Bucs roster that's loaded right now, well, anything is possible. But before getting more into it, again, I want to point out we've got another change in tiers, because now with this name and with all others following it, we are in tier 6 running back category, which in my eyes, you're outside of a reliable RB2 option in fantasy. Now, I still have him towards the top of that list, which signifies that I do believe he can break into that RB2 category, but it'll probably be a low-end one, or it'll probably be towards the latter parts of the season. So let's go ahead and examine why that is the case. Well, the biggest thing that Vaughn probably has going against him is that the Bucs are in win now mode, which means how confident are they in giving the football right away to an unproven running back when Ronald Jones is still there? Favorably, however, for Vaughn, Ronald Jones isn't anything to lose sleep over, because he hasn't really popped as of yet. And skill-wise, I don't think there's anything special there for Ronald Jones. Out of all the guys that we've mentioned in terms of veteran running backs that have to be beat out in a committee, well, Ronald Jones is at the bottom of that list. He's not really a threat. I think Vaughn can go ahead and dethrone him pretty comfortably. It won't take an injury is what I'm saying. Along with this offense, with Tom Brady, with Mike Evans, with Chris Godwin, with Gronk, with Bruce Arians calling the plays, scoring is going to be happening, we anticipate, very often. So again, another reason why you should like the opportunities for Vaughn, who a lot of people may be rushing to it, but are comping him to a young David Johnson who can kind of do everything well. But that brings the question again, how much will we see of him as a rookie running back behind Tom Brady? All in all, though, with what he presents as a pass catcher and a pure runner, I'm going ahead and willing to roll the dice on him, because him, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, with those offenses they both reside on, and a DeAndre Swift, I think they're 3 of these rookie running backs with the highest ceiling. And when you get past the Jonathan Taylors and the DeAndre Swifts, and you're looking at this next tier of rookie running backs, you have to shoot for the stars. You have to go for upside, and that's exactly what Keyshawn Vaughn presents. I have got him right around the 31 mark as far as running back rankings. Again, we're factoring in potential, and Vaughn has a ton of it. At number 5, we have got Cam Akers of the Rams, and you knew once the Rams cut Todd Gurley that there was going to be a major opportunity here for whoever the running back was. Now, a lot of people were pointing to Darrell Henderson before the draft, but looks like the Rams saw all they needed to see in Henderson after 1 year in LA, because Cam Akers, he was an earlier pick in the draft, and man, he's an all-around polished running back that can do it all, and I think he could go day one and be the starting running back for the Rams. That's how beatable I think the competition here is in terms of the veteran running back presence in Malcolm Brown and Henderson, and I almost feel ashamed to call Henderson a veteran because that's how little he showed us last year, but that's the case. Now, let's look at the downside, because there's a big one here in the offensive line for the Rams, because that was a big issue why the offense struggled as a whole last year, why honestly we've seen Todd Gurley, even when he was healthy and peak Todd Gurley before load management, struggle with this Rams team. When there's no offensive line, you're going to see problems throughout, and especially at the running back production. And that's what I'm afraid we could see here, because even though the Rams, you could counteract with they want to be a run-first team because they want to limit the amount of passes that Jared Goff has to throw, I don't think they did enough to upgrade that offensive line. So what I'm trying to say is that even though I think Cam Akers probably has the highest ceiling out of any of these rookie running backs because of his competition, he also has a very low floor because he could still win out the starting spot, but just be very disappointing like we've seen a Todd Gurley before, like we've referenced. So for that reason, take caution whenever looking at Cam Akers. It's also why I wasn't high on Darrell Henderson even before the Rams drafted a running back. So just know at the end of the day that the ceiling is high and that you could potentially get a league winner in Cam Akers here, but the floor is also very low. I have him pretty much right after Keyshawn Vaughn. I think they're very similar type of running backs as far as the rookies are concerned and as far as their respective situations. So right around that early 30 running back ranking mark when you average out PPR and standard formats. At number 6, we have got J.K. Dobbins of the Ravens. And a lot of people have Dobbins higher than this, as high as the running back 4 from the rookies. But I'm here to tell you that you should really be pumping the brakes on Dobbins, because even though he was an early selection by the Ravens, there's a lot of areas of concern when you look at his situation. Now, I'll be the first to admit that this Ravens offense was absolutely dynamite last year with Lamar Jackson. He did things that we've pretty much never seen before since Mike Vick, and they were scoring at will. And the running backs were a big part of it. Mark Ingram had a bunch of success, but if you go and look at his numbers, a big reason why that is because of touchdown success. And we all know in the fantasy community that that is the last thing that you can count on in terms of performances that will be duplicated year to year. Touchdown success is so variable. Now, I'm someone that even before this draft was saying Mark Ingram will be overvalued, overdrafted, and due to those beliefs, I think that'll be the case again here with J.K. Dobbins. Now, with Mark Ingram, my worry was that he's not in the long-term future plans of the Baltimore Ravens, and that was clearly shown by the drafting of J.K. Dobbins, but the fact remains is he's still playing out a pretty hefty contract, and he will still get his opportunities as long as he is healthy. But let's also look at the fact that there's guys like Gus Edwards and Justice Hill who all had a lot of success for this offense, and I don't think that they're going anywhere. And out of the competition here that any rookie running back is facing, this is the stiffest by far. You're not going to only have to rely on one injury. You might have to rely on multiple running back injuries here for J.K. Dobbins to be as dominant as people are hoping. Also, let's not forget that Lamar Jackson is basically a running back. He's going to take a lot of those running back opportunities away from the actual running backs themselves. Also, I'm in the camp that believes that this Baltimore offense will not be as successful as they were last year. I think the scoring will go down. I think the touchdown success will go down. And I think you're going to be sorely disappointed with whichever running back you choose from the Baltimore Ravens. Now, ranking-wise, I have got J.K. Dobbins pretty low in the 40s as far as overall running back ranking. So again, buyer beware here. Sure, the offense is a good one, but it's going to take, I believe, multiple injuries for him to become the guy, unless the Ravens have just decided that they're going to start phasing out Mark Ingram starting this year. But again, we need more time to see that. So up until this point, for now, we are really pumping the brakes on J.K. Dobbins. At number 7, we've got Zack Moss of the Bills. And this is a running back that I think could be very worthwhile if you invest a pick and there's an injury to the veteran presence in Devin Singletary, which has been a theme with a lot of these rookie running backs, if you've noticed, because, again, there's running backs by committees with almost every single one of them. But that's the trend in the NFL nowadays, because Devin Singletary was a rookie last year, but he really had success. Now, a lot of people were hyping him up, especially after the departure of Frank Gore, but we all knew that the Bills would add someone, whether in free agency or in the draft. That's exactly what happened with Moss here. Now, there are some comps to Derrick Henry in terms of the physical style that he has, which is all nice and well, and even more so when you consider the run-first type of scheme that the Bills have. But let's not forget that Josh Allen is one of these running quarterbacks that will take away opportunities from both Singletary and from Moss, and also the fact that Singletary really proved that he belonged last year. I don't think he's going to be as easy competition to maybe beat out as some people might think. I think he's very much so in favor in the eyes of the coaching staff. They will give him a lot of opportunities. He brings more to the table as a pass catcher. The one window here will be if there is an injury, Zack Moss could explode. Right now, I'd probably take a late round flyer towards the end of your drafts on Moss, stash him on your bench, and if Singletary goes down for an extended period of time, then Moss will really skyrocket in terms of potential, all the way up to a mid-level to high-level RB2, if not higher, based on the way that the Bills utilize those running backs. So keep that in mind. His ceiling is very high, but you need to depend on an injury first. The floor, it's going to be limited, especially in non-PPR formats because of the pass catching abilities. So keep that in mind. I've got him right around the 45th overall running back for this year. And finally, coming in at number 8, we have got A.J. Dillon of the Green Bay Packers, one of the multiple shock picks they had in the draft. But when it comes to Dillon, I almost don't want to even include him on this list because he will not have a lot of opportunities his rookie year. I firmly believe that compared to every single one of the rookie running backs that we have listed so far. He would be higher, I'd admit, on my dynasty rankings because I think looking at him, you're looking at his year 2 and his year 3 on this offense because signs point towards Aaron Jones probably not getting an extension. We don't know what's going to happen with Jamal Williams. He all of a sudden could become a trade candidate. I doubt he'll get cut, but either way you slice it, for 2020, Dillon is going to have a tough go at overcoming both Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Yes, this Packers offense is shifting more towards a run-first type of team, even with Aaron Rodgers still there. But in redraft leagues for 2020, I just don't like the upside for Dillon. This is more so of a future note to you guys. If you're looking at dynasty guys, I really like Dillon. He's going to be someone that you have to invest in long term, but afterwards, I could really see him being something close to an Aaron Jones. But again, let's not forget that LaFleur and the coaching staff really seem to favor running backs by committee here. Even when Aaron Jones was successful last year in 2019, Jamal Williams did not just go away. So also keep that in mind for A.J. Dillon. At this point in time, I don't even have him in my top 50 overall rankings. It's going to take multiple injuries for him to become a factor. So right now, he's probably going to go undrafted in redraft leagues, which I don't blame you. But however, he is definitely worth a look in dynasty formats. So with that, we wrap up our look into these top rookie running backs for this 2020 fantasy season. And as always, let me hear it in the comments section. Did you agree, disagree, why, or why not? And like we mentioned before, check out the description for all the details on how to get your hands on a 2020 fantasy football draft guide copy by ADP for this season. Go ahead, pre-order one now at a discounted price while it still lasts. And as always, if you guys enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys in future videos.